name is Tyler Oakley, and the queer community has always been resilient. Whether it's our acceptance or our rights, we have always fought for what we deserve. Last year in Chosen Family, we learned all about the Stonewall riots, but queer activism did not end there. So in today's episode of Chosen Family, we're looking at another story about how the queer community fought back and how you can get involved today. After the Stonewall riots in 1969, the 70s brought a decade of sexual liberation and queer pride. But in the early 80s, the community faced a deadly crisis nobody could explain or comprehend. As the AIDS epidemic hit the world, the queer community was stigmatized and ostracized. And with almost no support, had to demand action by any means necessary.
ACT UP had to exist primarily because gay men were dying like flies and nobody cared, nobody was doing anything about it.
The gay community was so afraid of engaging nationally in an outward fashion that it took that many deaths and that much built up anger and frustration of what was going on before Larry Kramer popped the bubble of anger and it burst out with ACT UP New York.
Nobody knew what this disease was. There was no cure. Everybody died really ugly deaths within a matter of 12 to 18 months. And there was no treatments whatsoever. And so there was immediately all of these moral judgments because it first hit gay men and later drug users and sex workers, so it's junkies, queers, and whores. The people that everyone hates, the bottom of the totem pole, and people were being fired from their jobs, evicted from apartments, denied health care.
St. Vincent's Hospital was one of the very few hospitals that would actually admit someone living with AIDS in the beginning of the epidemic. Many of the nurses and doctors were afraid to touch AIDS patients. A lot of the orderlies would leave the trays of food outside the door. They were afraid to even walk in the room with trays of food, so they wanted to get people who were willing to provide adequate care to be the people who staffed those floors so that people living with and dying ultimately of AIDS got adequate care.
It took massive numbers of deaths, like in the tens of thousands, before people realized no one's going to help us except ourselves. No one was caring for us but ourselves. And so we had to turn the anger and the grief that we had from losing all of our friends into action to try to wake the public up and make the government and the public do something.
We shattered the American myth of the homosexual, which was weak, timid, cowering in the corner. They thought we were just quietly going to die, and we were saying, no way, no how, this has got to stop. And it became a family, a communal family, under amazing emotional stress, just gelled, found its voice, and became this beautiful community reaction.
I want to talk about what an ACT UP meeting was like.
Well, they were on the first floor of the LGBT Center here on West 13th Street in New York.
This is where ACT UP met. Usually there was a stage in the front of the room, risers where the action happened, where presentations were given.
These pillars are the originals.
Yeah.
So we would lean against these things and
scream
and raise your hand and debate. At our peak, 800 people would pack in there. We'd ignore the fire codes. They read out, this is the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power. They gave our mission statement. And there would be a hefty debate. People would get up and sway the room with rallying speeches or cries or anger.
So this room is where ACT UP meets every Monday, and it's at 7 o'clock. Everyone is welcome. It's an inclusive space that we try to facilitate. And we talk about different issues like HIV criminalization, different access to PrEP campaigns. It's definitely always special because we still feel it in the air.
What would you say is the most impactful demonstration that happened with ACT UP?
We put a call out to have people bring ashes of people who had died of AIDS for us to dump on the White House lawn.
Wow.
And it coincided with the display of the quilt, the huge, the quilt was laid out on the Washington Mall, and it went from the Washington Monument all the way to the other end, and there were tens of thousands of people there. And so we marched along the edge of that in a funeral procession with funeral drums chanting out of the quilt and into the streets, join us, join us. And people started just kind of flooding out of the quilt. And so it quickly went from a few hundred of us that had traveled from all of the country to thousands of people joining us to go to the White House lawn and dump the ashes of people that had died on the White House lawn, so that the government had to see, smell, taste the result of their genocide through inaction.
Yeah.
So when they tore down the hospital, which used to be over there, and put up condos instead, Eric and a bunch of other activists convinced the developer to get a corner of this park for an AIDS memorial, permanent AIDS memorial.
So the idea of the park is actually that that's the entrance to the park, and that's kind of the way the architects envisioned it, that you enter the park through the memorial. This is like a quiet, reflective place where people can come and remember and share memories of their loved ones that they lost to AIDS. We were creating this to pay tribute to, more than 100,000 of our friends who died of AIDS in this city, and to memorialize and pay tribute to the community response, and to know that it took, a fight again to get the governmental officials and funders to allow it to happen. But to see it actually be, realized and open was very emotional, and it felt really great to finally know that those 100,000 people who died of AIDS wouldn't be forgotten.
It's definitely hard to get people energized, to get people motivated to say that we're not just memorializing AIDS, we're still living with HIV. We need to tell people that there are still issues and we still need to fight. And now I meet here every Monday and we try to do the best we can, especially for the people in ACT UP that didn't make it. Like, this is the work that needed to be continued, that we're 31 years in, but there's still work to do.
Today, ACT UP and GMHC fight for prevention, care, and advocacy. And the spirit of Eric and Peter's grassroots activism has inspired new queer activist groups to take on other urgent causes.
What organizations do you see nowadays that inspire you, that feel reminiscent of what you were doing at the start of ACT UP?
There's a new organization in New York, Voices For, which started initially with a single issue of responding to what happened in Chechnya a year ago. They decided to respond here in New York, started doing meetings at the same center where ACT UP met, and you go into their meetings and it's very reminiscent. It's young queers, passionate, full of ideas, planning the next action.
I met up with Adam Eli, the founder of Voices For, who told me more about what moved him to ACT.
Voices For began because news broke in April about what was happening in Chechnya, and I grew up in a house that was very Jewishly informed, and we all always talked about the Holocaust and never again. And when I heard that people were being put into concentration camps for who they were, I knew that never again was now. What's happening in Chechnya is state-sanctioned violence against queer people, which means that police are entrapping, beating, raping, and murdering queer people, and they are also calling upon families of queer people to commit honor killings and kill them on their behalf as the honor of the family. So today, Voices For is gathering in Columbus Circle. We have a visual planned, and we are demanding increased action around the situation in Chechnya, and we are also demanding a formal investigation into what is happening.
So we just got to Columbus Circle here in New York City. We are here for the protest to raise awareness and to demand action for our brothers and sisters, our queer siblings across the globe that are being oppressed, specifically in Chechnya. I've been looking forward to being here and to stand with people that I am inspired by and to learn from them and to hopefully amplify voices that are being disenfranchised.
Really trembling, shivering, and scared to death while they perpetrate of pleasing themselves, they eager, torturing, humiliating.
And there were 15 or 16 of us. We were not allowed to eat, walk, or sleep.
He was brutally beaten and tortured while detained.
Back and link the wires with clamps so that the wires permeated under my nails.
We'll keep fighting till they're not hiding.
I will never forget the reality of why Eric and Peter were forced to demand action, and I will always carry with me the mantra of Voices For. Queer people everywhere are responsible for queer people anywhere. Each of us has the ability to make a difference. We just have to realize our power, harness it, and change the world.
Thank you so much for watching this video and for getting involved in whatever way you can, whether it's locally, nationally, globally. Using your voice is so important. Whether you have 1 follower or 1 million, you can still make an impact. So if you want to find out more about ACT UP, about Voices For, or about any other organization that we talked about in this video, the links will be in the description. Please get involved, even by following them. That does help. Also, if you want to get this video's pin, the link to that is below. It is so cute and it does a lot of good. That's all I have for this episode of Chosen Family. I will see you in the next episode. Bye, friends.